Getting a university degree is a dream come true for most of us. There is no better feeling than when you finally achieve your parchment at the end of your degree. It is a culmination of your blood, sweat, and tears as you sat night after night toiling away at an assignment or reading, or both. Apart from all the hard work that you put in throughout your 4 years of undergraduate life, the fiscal aspect of education also plays an equally important role in completing your degree program. In fact, it is more important than hard work in some cases. In addition to the tuition fees, a student also has to set aside a considerable amount of money for other miscellaneous expenses. One of the most expensive costs incurred by students is the purchase of textbooks. Yes, textbooks are still important for university students to understand the basic concepts. The textbook gives a direction so that students don't get puzzled. But whenever there's a problem in following any portion of the textbook, the students are needed to go through the reference books or articles for understanding and then back to the textbook. Over the years, Nigerian publishers and authors have suffered a lack of encouragement leading to book scarcity at all levels of education. There is also a heavy dependency on foreign textbooks and journals at the tertiary level of the educational system, which should be discouraged so that indigenous technology can grow. Let's look at some of the challenges of book publishing in Nigeria. Book publishing is capital intensive. It's a struggle for most authors and publishers to raise money for their book projects. Most people in Nigeria have a poor reading culture. The young mostly only read when they have an examination to sit for or in order to obtain a certificate. On the other hand, the older generation will hardly invest in books that are not directly related to their careers or businesses. This poor reading culture consequently inhibits the sale of books and publishing of more. The high tariff placed on imported printing materials, the value-added tax, discourages many people from publishing their books. That's not to mention that these increased costs have tripled in our current COVID-19 infected world. Books are regularly pirated and resold at cheaper prices to the detriment of authors and publishers who can barely break even from the sales of genuine copies. Most players in the Nigerian publishing industry lack the requisite expertise in writing, editing, and publishing books. Some of those who have the expertise lack the finances to meet the standard demands of publishing. The Tertiary Education Trust Fund is changing all this and has injected renewed energy into book publication as part of its paradigm shift. These are the chronicles of the journey to institutionalize research and development in Nigeria. Hello, and welcome to this edition of TETFund, the Paradigm Shift. I am Stanley Bentu. Now, I love to read. Reading helps to expand the mind and to give us more ideas. Reading has been proven to keep our minds young, healthy, and sharp, with studies showing that reading can even help to prevent Alzheimer's disease. But what you read is just as important as whether or not you read at all. If all that you read are books that are written by foreigners with reference to foreign cultures, you may at best develop an identity crisis, and at worst, consume information that will make you fall flat when attempting to apply such principles directly to the development of your own culture. TETFund understands this challenge so very well, and as part of its strategic interventions, established a Technical Advisory Group, or TAG for short, to facilitate the implementation of higher education book development program. Now, in 2021, TETFund reconstituted and inaugurated TAG, and the group hasn't slowed down in carrying out its responsibilities of facilitating book publications and quality control. Now, just last week, TAG got together at Fraser Suites in Abuja for a 2-day meeting to review a number of textbooks that will hopefully, ultimately, make their way into the markets to educate Nigerian scholars in different fields of endeavor. This edition of the program will focus on this meeting, bringing you all of the highlights, including the surprise visit of the Executive Secretary of TETFund, Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro. But before we do that, we bring you a bit of background so that you can understand exactly what TAG is and why it's important to TETFund's paradigm shift towards research and development.
The Department of Education Support Services, that's the DESS, was created to manage and implement academic content-based intervention programs of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, that's TETFund, for public tertiary institutions across Nigeria. These are essentially non-infrastructural intervention programs which focus on capacity building in our public tertiary institutions. These programs focus on human development on one hand, that's the lecturers and the professors, and intellectual development on the other hand, referring to the materials used, books, journals, periodicals, and e-resources. There are 3 divisions in the department structured along the current activities being handled: the Library Development Division, the Academic Manuscript to Book Division, and finally, the Tertiary Advisory Group activities on higher education book development. To facilitate the implementation of higher education book development program, the TETFund Board of Trustees inaugurated the Tertiary Advisory Group under the chairmanship of Professor Charles Awo to deliver its mandate. The membership of a Tertiary Advisory Group, that's TAG, is drawn from universities across the 6 geopolitical zones, the NUC, that's the National Universities Commission, the NBTE, that's the National Board for Technical Education, the NCCE, that's the National Commission for Colleges of Education, ASU, that's the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUP, that's the Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics, the Colleges of Education Academic Staff Union, and finally, the representatives of the print media. The activities of TAG are also aimed at encouraging local production of higher education books by indigenous authors for national and international consumption. TAG was charged with the following responsibilities: harvest doctorate theses and master's dissertations from across the beneficiary institutions for possible conversion into books, screen proposals on manuscripts and theses and dissertations for development into academic textbooks, and advising TETFund on fundable manuscripts or dissertations, screen and advise TETFund on submissions from professional associations to support production of journals, recommend reviewers for screened manuscripts and dissertations for engagement by TETFund for technical assessment of the manuscripts and theses and dissertations, advise the fund on how to enhance and improve the production of quality academic books, journals, and other academic learning materials, review materials for journal publication from relevant professional bodies, to advise the fund on development and sustainability of the academic publishing centers, APC, being sponsored by the fund. TAG is currently operating through 3 subcommittees: the Book Publication Subcommittee, the Journal Publication Subcommittee, and the Academic Publishing Subcommittee. When it comes to the paradigm shift, the activities of the Department of Education Support Services, that's DES, and TAG, form a critical aspect of the component often spoken by TETFund boss, that's Professor Suleiman Elias Bagoro, as he insists that the quality of tertiary education attainable is directly linked to the quality of the faculty.
In respect of prioritizing research, and I'll tell you one thing, never in the history of our country is research a central element being acknowledged that it is happening now and that it may change the game for our country. Never in the history of our country. And that we see academics working together with those from the industry. Those in the industry are showing respect. We've created platform as never before for bringing together the academia and industry with government representatives to complete the triple helix. Because if government representatives are not there, and if there is no policy to identify the requirements of what you do as researchers, the outcome of research, then it's vain work. And if there is no law to back up the policy, then it's inadequate. That is the wisdom of the triple helix model.
Well, more Nigerian textbooks are required to satisfy the needs of the ever-growing number of students and disciplines that we have at the tertiary level. So let's move on to the two-day TAG meeting and get a sense of how this group operates in effect. One of the most impressive things about TAG is its penchant to ensure that every book submitted for assessment is critically examined with every aspect carefully scrutinized with a fine-tooth comb. Now let's have a look at further details of the two-day meeting and all that happened there.
The Technical Advisory Group is made up of 3 subcommittees. The Book Publication Subcommittee, headed by Professor John Ila, the Journal Publication Subcommittee, led by Professor Yakub Ahmed Gidam, and the Academic Publication Centers, led by Professor Ibrahim Saminu. The Paradigm Shift production team interviewed the conveners of the 3 subcommittees and the chairman of the Technical Advisory Board, Professor Charles Awo. They had this to say.
This will be the 3rd year of this technical advisory group, this one in particular. And we have made tremendous progress despite the challenges that we first had with COVID-19, which made a meeting not as frequent as we would have loved to. But we overcame that by meeting virtually. So our mandate is primarily to advise TETFund on the book development intervention. And it is actually in 3 parts. One is to produce high quality textbooks for our tertiary education institution. And that falls squarely under the mandate of the Book Publication Subcommittee of TAG. And they, as well as the other 2 subcommittees, have been meeting. And I must say that under book publication, in 2014, we produced 20 books that were well received by the tertiary education system. Right now, we have close to 40 manuscripts that are in the process of preparation as books. Indeed, I can say authoritatively that, God willing, by the end of May, we'll have at least 10 manuscripts that will be available for the Nigerian tertiary education system.
One of the major things we want to do is to appraise where we are, some of the issues overlapping, from last year, to bring them up and then see how we can now prepare a template actually for continuing, the work this year. So that's one of the major things that we are doing. It concerns all the factors of, all the elements of our mandate. It includes looking at issues relating to PhD thesis. These are theses of, candidates who were sponsored by TETFund, and they've come back. We are looking at their thesis. Where there is quality, they will be now upgraded into books. They are subject to all sorts of review mechanisms, and so on and so forth. We are looking at some of them at this work. Another one again is to look at, the basic text. As you are aware, we sort of are taking inventory of some of the basic texts that are coming in, right? We look at them. We are the ones who commissioned some of the professors in this field. And on the whole, as you are aware, there are almost about 700 contributors, for the ones we are doing on the current, stretch. So we are taking, some of them. Our expectations will be that we'll be able to take delivery of certain concrete manuscripts that are finished, and they are now going to press. As we are aware, we are working with the University of Ibadan Press. We are working with the Academic Publishing Center, right, in Lagos. This is a center established by TETFund. It's now getting into publishing, and we're very happy about that. Right, without TETFund, we know it's a TETFund committee, but without the support of the Executive Secretary, Professor Bogoro, we will not be able to do what we are doing. His heart is there. It's one of the soft but strategic interventions that will affect the conduct of knowledge production in Nigeria in years and years to come. So we are grateful.
The Journal Publication Subcommittee is a subcommittee of Technical Advisory Group of TETFund. It has the responsibility of working or advising TETFund on ways to improve the publication of journals in our Nigerian cycle. The board of professional association journals, and then the journals that are based within the institutions within the country, be it university, polytechnic, or colleges of education. That is the beneficiary institutions of TETFund. If you look at it, you will know that what TETFund is doing is something that cannot be described in taking our tertiary institutions to higher levels. They have touched major things, projects, research, right? And even little thing as ordinary journal in a faculty is being supported by TETFund. That is to tell you that the entire tertiary institution system is being overhauled by TETFund. In fact, we wouldn't want to imagine any tertiary institution in Nigeria without TETFund. Certainly, they have done well, and they are doing very well.
Academic Publishing Centers happens to be one of the 3 subcommittees of TAG. And basically, what we do is to try to advise, the main group, which actually now further advises the board of TETFund with respect to, helping the academic publishing centers that are located in the 6 geopolitical zones. You have 6 of them, 1 in each of the geopolitical zones, and this one in Abuja as well, so making a total of 7. And the whole idea is to see how we can improve, the situation of book, publication in the country. I think that we have largely achieved because almost all the centers are ready, to go. But the major thing is that, the major thing we need to do now is to go there. The ES needs to go there and inaugurate the boards and clearly define to them, what are the things that is expected of all the higher institutions in the zones and especially the host institution. The fund support is excellent. So far we have submitted a plan, a work plan for the 2 years that we are supposed to work on this committee, and happily the board has approved, whatever it is that we have submitted, and so far all the funds and the support that we have needed has always come to us, to enable us to do the work. So I think it's a very good thing that we are getting all the support in terms of finances and in terms of logistics to be able to execute our assignment.
On day 2 of the meeting, TAG was pleased to host the Executive Secretary of TETFund, who stopped by to show his support and stay appraised of the week in progress. The ES was not disappointed as he received updates from the group and each of its subcommittees. Finally, it was time for the August visitor of the TAG meeting to respond. Professor Bogoro, in typical fashion, underscored the importance of research and development, stressing that there is more research consciousness in Nigerian universities than ever before.
Yes. We have already a number of breakthroughs, some for drugs, some for vaccine, that have got to recognizable level, and we hope it moves to the WHO recognition for testing them with animals, laboratory animals, or whichever, as we're so decided, to verify the efficacy, of course, of the vaccines and the drugs. We have the other drug at Abuat, Adoekiti. They started that particular research, when you got that drug, they started with TETFund research grant. So we have a lot of things to say. Federal Polytechnic Nekede Oweri, it was TETFund grant that kickstarted. We can go on and on. We have so many results that are exciting us. And all of you are involved. Most of you here are the principal investigators for those research grants. And now at the TAC, we are addressing key areas that are the facilitators that demonstrate those things we're doing in the universities, the polytechnics, and colleges of education to change the firmament for our country. And you better imagine how excited I am, and the entire TETFund, the Board of Trustees, the Honorable Minister of Education, and believe me, up to the level of Mr. President, that those things we're doing and people are appreciating, that is changing the environment. You will agree with me that presently, there is more research consciousness in our universities, polytechnic, and colleges than ever.
The 2-day meeting then continued with reviews on plagiarism tests, on new manuscripts, progress reports on manuscripts in press, evaluation of submissions and assessors reports, and other matters arising.
Well, it's really quite fascinating to watch up close how academics and other professionals work. We have experts within our country who are meticulous and methodical in all that they do, which means it is not all gloom and doom in Nigeria, as many on several social media platforms wish for you to think. The way to bring this to the fore and to elevate the quality of conversation in our public space is the pride of place that TETFund is giving intellectuals in its interventions. And that is the paradigm shift. Join us again on the next edition of the program. But until then, thank you for stopping by. Good night.